Hello, welcome to the OrtoTech Garage. My name's Keith. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about malfunction indicator lights. You're driving down the road and all of a sudden your dashboard looks like this. What are you going to do about it? In all seriousness, guys, there's a lot of different lights that can come on in your car. There's so many different vehicles out there with their own specific lights. I can't go over all of them in this video, but I do want to go over some of the very most common lights that you're going to see and that are universal to just about every vehicle. Let's get right into that. So the first thing I really want to talk to you guys about is the purpose of all these malfunction indicator lights. Obviously they're a warning sign to you, that much you know, but basically what's going on inside your car are there are multiple computers that are operating all the different systems in there. So you've got a powertrain control module, you may have a separate transmission control module, there are body control modules, there are modules that control your power windows sometimes. There's literally a computer for everything nowadays, and these computers are designed to track certain parameters within the system, and when they see something that goes out of range, that's usually when they'll identify a problem. And then when it sees it maybe more than once, there's I don't want to get too technical with some of this stuff, but there are certain factors that determine when the check engine light should turn on, and based on some particular codes and things. So when the computer recognizes there's a problem and it sees it's something persistent enough to turn the light on, it's going to do that just to alert you there's a problem. So that's why you're seeing these malfunction lights turn on. And then the next thing I wanted to mention to you is the level of importance of the light. So fairly universal among all the manufacturers. There are red lights, there are yellow lights, there's blue lights, there's all kinds of stuff going on in there, but the most important one, you need to understand the difference between a red light and pretty much everything else. So if you're seeing a red light come on, that's usually something extremely important. It could be a safety concern, it could be something's going to get damaged in your engine. So I want to make sure that if you see a red light come on, that's an indication to you. You just need to pull the car over to a safe spot on the side of the road and take a break, take a breather, and see if there's some things that you can check. We're going to talk about some of these as we get into some of the other lights. If you see a yellow light on or an amber color light, that usually means, hey, we've got a problem, but don't freak out. You've got some time. It's okay to drive a little bit longer generally. It's hard for me to kind of throw a blanket over everything, but if a yellow light is on, my advice to you is it's probably okay to drive. The only caveat to that would be feeling something wrong with the car. That does not mean it's okay to drive. So I would recommend you just pull over and have the car towed in. If everything seems to be functioning completely normal, you're not seeing any problems, and that light's staring at you and it's an amber color, yellow color light, you're probably okay to continue driving wherever you're going. You may have a couple of days before you get it into the technician. Usually those things are okay to drive, but when that light comes on, whatever system has indicated a malfunction with that yellow light, it's probably been disabled. It's not functioning. So perfect example of that would be if your ABS light came on. So if that yellow ABS light is on, it's probably not going to have anti-lock brakes that are functioning. So it's okay to drive. Does that mean it's got all its safety features? Absolutely not. So that would mean that your anti-lock brakes are probably not going to function at all. The system will disable itself because it sees something that's not working and it can't operate properly without all the features of it functioning properly. It doesn't have any way to determine all the sensors information when one of them is not working. Now that you understand the difference between a red light and a yellow light, why they come on, we're going to talk about the most common malfunction indicator light that you're probably ever going to see on your vehicle. I know it's the most common we see in the garage every day, and that is the check engine light. The check engine light comes in a variety of different shapes. Some of them actually say check engine. Some have this weird little picture that's supposed to look like an engine. The reason that check engine light will come on, it varies vastly. There are so many different things that can happen within your engine or transmission controls. I don't want to get too specific on those things right now, but I do want to tell you that there are some subsystems within the check engine light that are being monitored by your computer. So one of them is your fuel system, another one is your ignition system, and then another one will be your emission system. So any of those systems that are finding a fault, the computer has identified a problem, some values that are out of range, could turn the malfunction indicator light on. So it's important that when that light comes on, you bring it into the garage, or if you have your own scan tool, a scan tool is something that will plug into the connector under the dashboard, and we're able to view those codes, see what subsystems are having a problem, see if there's multiple codes in there, and those codes eventually lead us to the problems. Another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, and this is probably a video for another day, but the codes that you get out of the system are not the problem with the system. The codes are identifying a system that is having a problem, and there are many components, wiring, there's all kinds of things that could be wrong. There's also erroneous code. Some lights come on because there's a problem somewhere else, and we'll see that from time to time. So I know some of you guys are just thinking you just put the computer on it and you know, it'll spit you the problem out. That's not exactly how it works. We're going to do an in-depth video of check engine light malfunction and a diagnostic procedure somewhat on that later on down the road. But I want to let you guys know that just because you have a light on that has identified one specific code doesn't mean there's one part that needs to be replaced in that system, okay? That's just identifying a subsystem within the car that needs some attention. And it could be a lot of things. There's a lot of testing that has to go on. You're probably wondering what might be a few examples of why your check engine light could come on. I'm sure most of you have had this light come on and had to spend some money on some repairs somewhere. But you know, it could be anything from as simple as a loose gas cap and something as complicated as a mechanical engine malfunction. You could literally have a hole in your piston and it might turn a check engine light on because the car is not running on all its cylinders. So really important when that check engine light comes on, identify if you have any issues at the current moment. Has anything changed in the operation of the vehicle? Are there any other malfunction lights that have come on with the check engine light? And if it's just a check engine light and you haven't noticed any other things happening, you're okay probably to drive it for a little bit. I don't mean weeks and months. I mean maybe for the rest of the day or a day or two until you can get it into the garage. Another light that you might see on your dashboard is the oil pressure light. And I want to make a clear distinction between oil pressure and oil level. They can be related, but they also might be two separate malfunction lights. Some cars have a low oil level indicator indicating you need to add oil. That's the only purpose for it. And then most vehicles don't have that, and they'll have a light for oil pressure. So oil pressure could be a host of different things. It is possible that you don't have enough oil in the car, and that would make the oil pressure light come on. So if you saw that light come on, regardless of what might be wrong with it, you need to quickly get over to the side of the road as quickly and safely as you possibly can. And the first thing I would do is to open the hood up and check the oil level on it. So if you were, you know, if your car holds 5 quarts of oil and you're 3 quarts of oil low, oil pressure light is definitely going to come on at some point because you don't have enough oil circulating within the system. So go ahead and check your oil level. If you're noticing the oil level is full and it's clean, and your oil pressure light has come on, there's not much else you can do on the side of the road. I would recommend you just have that vehicle towed in. It's the most safest thing you can do for your vehicle. You don't want to do any further damage. That light will usually come on and you can get to the side of the road fairly quickly. If it were an oil pump failure or something along those lines, you know, it's possible we could save everything in there just by having it towed in and you haven't done any extensive damage to it. So if you are noticing that oil level is low, there could be some reasons for that. You might be leaking oil or consuming oil. That's another thing that needs to be checked out, but it's possible that you could add a couple of quarts to oil to it and turn that light off and then continue on your journey. You know, when you have the opportunity to get back in, if that light hasn't come back on again after you've added the oil, then you get it into your technician at your leisure. Not that it's an emergency, but get it into your leisure and have somebody look at it and evaluate why you're running low on oil. Let's move on to the next one. Another common light, the battery light. This one is so misunderstood. Let's take a moment here to just kind of talk about some things that are going to make this battery light come on. The first thing I want to tell you is that you may have a battery light, you may have a voltage gauge to let you know the charge level as you're driving. A battery light does not necessarily mean that you've got a bad battery. Okay, generally speaking, it just means that your charging system voltage is low. So if that battery light is on while you're driving, there are, besides the battery, there's an alternator in the car. And the alternator is designed to provide all the electricity for everything electronic in the car, which is everything in a modern car. So if the alternator is not providing enough voltage for all the computer systems to work, and they need a certain amount of voltage in order to operate, and if that voltage threshold has been crossed as too low, the computer will turn on the battery light. So the battery light can also come on if you have a bad battery. That can certainly be a problem, but a lot of times it's usually a charging system problem and not a battery. There's not a whole lot you can do as a driver of the car on the side of the road to test your battery, determine if it's a battery problem or an alternator problem. But what you do need to know is that you've got that red light on again, red means you gotta have to get over to the side of the road, because I can tell you if you've got a charging system problem and your battery light is on, you are running low on electrical power. Eventually, you're gonna have no electrical power and your car is gonna shut off. So it's really important you get yourself to a safe spot on the side of the road, and I would tell you to have that vehicle towed in. If you would like to check, open the hood and just check, make sure your battery cable connections are good. Make sure there's a belt on the alternator. If you can look down in the front of the engine and you see the belt is missing or it's been shredded off or something, that's a good indication of what's wrong with the car. Obviously, we need the belt to drive the alternator in order to provide the electricity that you need. So those are probably two of the things that you could do on the side of the road to determine if there's anything that you might be able to fix and get this car going on the road. My recommendation is always red light, tow it in. Battery lights are always red. If you're enjoying our content here, I really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching. I'd love if you guys could just click that like button, subscribe to our channel, honk that horn button. This way you get some notifications when we put out a new video. We've got great stuff coming to you every week. Thank you for your support. The next light I want to talk to you about is the coolant light, okay? So you've got a couple of different lights that can come on for coolant. One is going to be engine temperature. That's usually a red light, and if you're driving a Volkswagen or something, it could be blue when you start the car and it changes color. So again, I have to be careful because I'm talking about a wide range of vehicles here, but generally speaking, engine temperature is going to be a red light. There might be a low coolant level that's usually a yellow or amber color. It's important that you're able to differentiate between the two, but I'm more concerned right now with the engine temperature because that's the one that's going to cause you some damage. So if you see that red temperature light on and maybe you have a temperature gauge that goes along with that, if your temperature gauge is escalating past the 3/4 threshold on the gauge, it usually means your car is starting to run hot. Now this is a very bad situation for you. So if the temperature has risen past 3/4 on the gauge, it's probably run over 230 degrees or so, maybe 240 degrees, and you're in the danger zone of doing some damage to your engine. So please, you see this temperature light come on, say again, safely get yourself to the side of the road. This is another one. You got a couple things that you can take a look at under the hood. It's possible your coolant is low. You pop the hood and you see your coolant reservoir is completely empty. Okay, that might be an indication to you that you're leaking some coolant and that's why the car is starting to overheat. Do not ever open any pressurized radiator caps. If you have a reservoir with a screw-on pressurized cap, never, ever, ever take that off while it's hot. Same goes for a radiator cap. Okay, this car has got to be cooled down completely. It is under probably about 15 pounds per square inch of pressure. And this cap, when you open it, it's going to blow a bunch of steam in your face. You're going to get scalded. You're probably going to end up in the emergency room. Okay, super careful. Never open any of these systems when they're hot. But I want to let you know, you can look at your reservoir. There are some level marks on it, one saying maximum, one saying minimum. If your fluid level in your reservoir is clearly low, below the minimum level, then you've obviously got low coolant. This is something you may be able to address, but you're going to have to wait for that car to cool down 100% before you open the radiator cap, any part of the pressurized system, in order to add some more coolant to it, okay? If you're stuck in the middle of nowhere and you need to add some water to it, by all means, you can do that. You're going to change a little bit of your freeze protection in there, and obviously you have a little bit less lubrication for your water pump and things, but in a pinch, if you need to add a little bit of water to your system just to get home wherever you're going, let that car cool down 100%. That's about all you're going to be able to do with that temperature light. Again, you could look at the belts and see maybe you have a water pump belt that's broken off or something like that. So if you see anything out of the ordinary under the hood, a belt, low coolant, those are probably the two things that you might be able to do something with if you're stuck stranded on the side of the road and get over to a parts store and buy a belt for it or something. If you don't have any tools, you might be stranded anyway. Again, red light, have it towed in. If the coolant level is low, you see the reservoir is a little bit low, but the car is not overheating and the temperature gauge is in the middle, you might be okay to drive it to get you the rest of the way home or to the auto shop, okay? Moving on to brake lights. You've got a couple of different lights that might come on related to your braking components. The first one is the red brake light. The red brake light generally comes on because you've got either low brake fluid. It could come on just for your parking brake, or it's coming on because there's a brake pressure problem within the system. The brake light is red, and it's warning you that there's something seriously wrong with your brakes. You may notice some symptoms that come along with that, and if you do, clearly you've got a problem. You need to get this vehicle, again, safely to the side of the road and have it towed back into the garage to be serviced. If you are not noticing any problems with your brake, it's possible your fluid level has just dropped below the minimum level. There's a float inside the brake reservoir that will turn the light on as the level drops too far. So it's possible that you can pull over to the side of the road and check that. If your fluid is just reached close to the minimum and is turning the light on, you could add some brake fluid to get that light to go off. But you still need to get it in for service. Generally, if the brake fluid is low, you either got a leak or your brake pads have worn down fairly low enough where the fluid that was in the reservoir has moved itself down into the brake calipers. As the brake pads wear, those calipers have pistons inside that are going to need a little more fluid than they did when they were retracted all the way. So it's normal for your brake fluid level to drop as your brake pads wear. It's a good indication that you might need some brake pads, but you also may have a leak somewhere. So I would definitely recommend, if you're seeing that light come on, even if you have some low fluid and you're able to add a little, don't continue to drive it. You want to get that into the shop for service and have somebody take a look at it. Let's see if it's just low brake pads. Let's see, you may have a leak in a hose or a caliper or something like that, and that can be something a little more serious. On another side note for brake lights, there is always on modern cars an anti-lock brake light, so an ABS feature in the system, and that light is usually a yellow light. Okay, so when you see that come on, if it's by itself, it's probably okay to drive a bit. Again, what I told you guys in the beginning of this video, if that ABS light is on, the ABS system has been deactivated by the computer. It does not have enough information to function properly. So it's not going to work, but it doesn't mean the brakes won't function. The basic brake system will still function for you as long as the red brake light is not on with it. Okay, so you will need to get it in for service. If the yellow ABS light comes on, is it urgent? Not necessarily. If you're seeing red and yellow at the same time, the red light always supersedes the yellow light. Pull it over, have it towed into the garage, let's get a look at it. Some other reasons you may have a yellow ABS light come on could be something as simple as a wheel speed sensor that's not reading properly, it's not picking up the proper rotation of the tire, and the computer can't function properly when it sees three wheels going at 60 miles an hour and one of them doesn't move at all. It thinks there's something severely wrong. Without all the proper inputs, it doesn't know what to do. Deactivated. Guys, it's important that if that ABS light is on and you decide to drive the vehicle, as I've told you before, the system has been deactivated. It's possible for you to lock your wheels up if you stand on the brakes too hard. You need to really understand that you're going to have an increased stopping distance as opposed to when your ABS system is functioning and kicking in and helping you stop. You also have the potential to lock your wheels up and lose your ability to turn with the wheels locked. And this is one of the important features of anti-lock brakes. So I want to make sure that you give yourself a lot of extra space if you do decide to move along a little further with that ABS light on. You really need to understand that function of your vehicle is no longer there. Base brake system is going to work, but an anti-lock brake system is not going to function for you at all. So be extremely careful, lots of stopping distance, and do not drive this vehicle for long stretches. In a pinch, get you home, get you to the garage, get it in for service, and let's get that feature working again for you. Let's move on to the next one. Tire pressure monitoring systems. Here's another light you're going to see from time to time. If your tires are underinflated, it's possible if they're even overinflated that the tire pressure monitoring system light will come on to indicate to you there's an issue with the tire pressure. So I think it's probably since somewhere around 2007 in the United States, these tire pressure monitoring systems were mandatory on all vehicles produced after that. All these vehicles, if you have something after that year, you most definitely have a tire pressure monitoring system on it. But that doesn't mean if you're driving a car older than that, that you don't have it, because the tire pressure monitoring system has been around for a long time. There's a lot of vehicles that produced long before that had these types of warning indicators coming on the dashboard. So you're going to recognize this light by usually looks like some sort of a front view of a tire with a, it's got an exclamation point on it. It may just say TPMS and light up. Either way, these lights are usually in yellow, an amber color. Again, it's usually not an urgent thing. Some cars will have the tire pressures for each wheel indicated somewhere in the cluster, so you might be able to move to a setting where you can actually check those pressures without even putting a pressure gauge on your tire at all. It is important that you have the proper inflation on your tires. It's a good idea to pull over anyway and just check and see if you've got one that's running low. I know I had an example. I was driving on the freeway and my light came on, and I literally didn't even make it a mile before I had a flat tire, so it was deflating that fast. I didn't really have much time to get where I was going. So that light comes on and you could be deflating quickly. It could could be just the pressure has dropped because maybe the temperatures got cool outside and your pressures hadn't been checked for a long time. If that light comes on, again, it's usually safe to drive. I would recommend, though, that you don't drive it. Pull over to the side of the road, make sure your tires all have some air in them, at least enough to get you where you're going. And then when you get to a place where you can properly check the tire pressure, I would do that immediately. If you notice you got one tire that's low, if you're putting air in it and it comes on again the next day, you've got some kind of a leak in there, a slow leak probably, and you want to get that addressed right away. And it's definitely not safe to be driving around with your tires underinflated or overinflated for that matter. There is a working pressure range for these tire pressure monitor systems, and you want to make sure that you're set to the manufacturer's recommended pressures that you're going to find in the door decal. So when you open that driver's door, there should be a placard in there that lets you know what the tire size is and what the recommended pressures are front and rear. It is also possible, depending on your vehicle, that you have a spare tire that's low. So if you're outside and you're looking at all your tires and they all look great, or if you have a tire pressure display in your vehicle and that display is reading that those 4 tires are looking good, it's possible your spare tire has that in there. Not all vehicles have a spare tire pressure sensor, but yours might. So another thing to check. You should be checking your spare regularly anyway. Thanks for making it this far in the video. I got one more thing I want to talk to you about. This one is the supplemental restraint system, or the airbag light. Okay, this light is always red in color because it's a safety concern when it's not working. Like I've told you before in this video earlier, if you see an airbag light on or supplemental restraint light on, that system has been deactivated. There's not enough of the components that are functioning for the computer to actually discern when the airbags need to be deployed or not. So it just disables the entire system, okay? So if you have an accident and that SRS light has been illuminated, don't count on your airbags working because they're not coming out, not unless it's an accident. Like the airbag deploying is an actual accident, which rarely ever happens, but if you're in a collision or something, those airbag systems are not functioning at all. So it's really important you get that in for service right away. Again, you guys probably want to know what can you do about it? Nothing. So, if you've got an airbag light on or an SRS, supplemental restraint system light on, you just need to bring it in for service. We need to connect a scan tool to it. We need to diagnose it properly and figure out what's going on. Some of the simpler causes for a SRS light, airbag light, just could be a bad seatbelt sensor, it could be a seat occupancy sensor, it could be a bad airbag itself. Sometimes we see they call the clock spring or the spiral cable that's in the steering column has gone bad. So there are some simple fixes to it. It's not always necessarily an airbag. As a matter of fact, most of the time it's not the airbag assembly itself. There's just some system sensor or some related component to that that's not reading correctly, and that's why the computer has disabled the system. If you see that light, get it in for service right away. You're losing out on that critical safety feature of your vehicle. And as always, when I talk about this in these videos, I'm here. I want you guys to be safe when you're on the road. I want you to make sure all these things are functioning properly, in addition to getting all this cool facts and information, but safety is always first in my book. Get in your owner's manual. Make sure you understand what all these lights turn on. I told you could check that bulb feature in the beginning. Just to power your car up, you'll see a bunch of lights light up. We've got more content right here coming at you. I'd love for you guys to check that stuff out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Honk the horn button. See you in the next video.